Well, Merry Christmas Eve, right? That's what it is. 540-0580. If you have a legal question, you need something answered, you want to know the law of Santa Claus and elves, I don't care. What else you want to know? Maybe about an auto accident, maybe about a divorce. I don't want to talk about that. Probably custody dispute. We've had about 800 of those phone calls in the last 3 days. He's not going to bring the kids for Christmas. She's refusing to give me New Year's, yada, 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 yada. You got to follow those orders. That's kind of the basic theory. And, of course, where the order has a lot of wiggle room or hasn't been followed in years, those are the cases where it crops up. Or suddenly a lot of emergencies usually crop up around Christmas, too. So all the, wrangling begins. If you're trying to get a custody order done right now, good luck, because most of the courthouses are closed because it's Saturday. So if you could find a judge, good luck. In the meantime, maybe you can get the police to enforce it. But here's the big thing. A lot of times the police will simply call it a civil matter and tell you to go ahead and go back to court. And my other favorite is the police will tell you, call the judge. And so judges are always like, why do these people call me? Why don't they file something? And why do my secretaries get these phone calls? Well, it's because the police will say, you need to call the judge. Or you need to, get a hold of the judge. And I think when the police say that, they really literally mean get your lawyer and get a hold of the judge, not call the judge's chambers. But people do that, and, of course, that doesn't work very well either. And even if you could get through, again, it's Saturday, so good luck. 540-0580. We're going to talk a little bit about this new picture of George Washington probably in the next segment, because I think it's a good example of history and historical accuracy and how we all think we know everything, and then we find out we don't. What else is going on in the world of law? Well, let's see, not too much. As you know, I'm still working on that, chugging away on that big case. Not much going on there, so I have nothing to report. But if you guys want to talk about what's going on with the Supreme Court, what's going on with the healthcare law is obviously going to be decided. If you got legal predictions for 2012, we'll take those. I'd be really curious to see where people think things are headed. And again, if you have one of those personal legal problems in your life, you want to just sort of shoot by me, and say, hey, here's what's going on. Should I get a lawyer? Or here's what's going on. What do I do? Or here's what my favorite question I get on the show. Here's what my lawyer told me to do. But I thought I'd call and get some free advice while I'm at it. And I always kind of chuckle about that. If you're paying your lawyer a good amount of money, which I hope you are, I hope you're paying him double or her, and they're giving you some advice, you should probably generally follow it. That said, I guess a second opinion for free can't hurt. But here's the dealio. I don't know everything your lawyer knows. So when you call in and say, is my lawyer doing it right? I'm getting a 3-second description of what's going on, maybe a 2-minute description if I give you a lot of time. But the point is, your lawyer has probably sat down, I hope, and met with you and studied the situation and is familiar with the details in a way that it's never going to happen on the air. So if you are calling to get a second opinion, remember that the second opinion is worth exactly what you paid for it. Steve, you're on the air. My talk line number is 540-0580. What's going on, Steve? Steve, they had the callers down. I apologize. I don't know who would turn the callers down, but the doctors probably, right? Yep.
What's that?
I said the caller knob, the doctors that come in here in the morning, okay?
Oh.
They're a bunch of knuckleheads, and they turn this caller knob down for some reason unknown to me. Now, it might not have been them, but it used to be them. Right? Yep.
Uh-huh.
All right.
Okay, so it's retroactive support is the question.
Okay.
And went in front of the judge, and she had said, "Hey, we're going back 2 years." How is that possible? And is there any recourse on my side?
Was that for child support?
Yeah.
And she said going back 2 years. Was there some claim that there was a raise that nobody knew about or that you didn't report?
Yeah.
I mean,
they're claiming that substantial increase, and it was gradual. There was an increase in income, but I didn't think they could go back that far. Now the other part of the question is, no, never mind about the other part of the question.
Well, there's a case out there that says that where you were under a support order which required you to disclose changes in income, the failure to disclose them can create the ability to go pre the date of filing. So probably, here's the question. Was your spouse aware of these increases?
I would imagine.
Yeah. So
she didn't file increase. She didn't file change in her income either.
Well, and the answer on that one is she would also be in violation and theoretically could go back 2 years. So I guess what you would do maybe is just go back and calculate out everybody's wage increases historically to look for adjustments. But yeah, I think a court has the power to do that. It's not in all circumstances. And I would think if it's not a material change, because what you're trying to tell me is they nickeled, they raise you a nickel every 2 months or every year or something, so it went up just a little bit at a time. But, I mean, how much of a raise are we talking about over 2 years?
Almost double.
Almost double. All right, well, there's your answer. So, yeah, they're gonna go back on that.
Now, the other half of the question is that she's been claiming, the deduction and head of household and all that stuff. Can the court order the receiver to give the payer the tax deduction and head of household if it's even split on custody?
The court in the support court can allocate who would take what deduction, as I understand it.
Now, if they're going back 2 years on the support, can they go back 2 years on that and allow me to refile?
That's an interesting question. The short answer is, can they require you to refile? I don't think so. I'm not sure they can do.
If I want them to do that,
if you want to refile, I guess you could refile, yeah, because but child support's post-tax, right?
What's that?
Child support's post-tax.
But it's total income.
Yeah. So
my income would be higher, so it would be higher support.
Well, your income hasn't changed because your income's whatever it was on the tax returns.
Yeah, but the adjusted gross would be higher.
Right. Interesting. Because you're going to
I pay a little more in support, but I get the tax deduction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they might recognize the quarter, but of course, they would require her to refile her tax returns if she took the deduction on them.
Right.
So yeah, I mean,
but they have the ability to mandate that, don't they?
What's that?
They have the ability to mandate that, don't they?
I don't know if they have the ability to mandate that or not, but that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, if it's going to retroactively change the history, I think you could ask for that. I certainly think that's relief a court could give.
I would think they opened it up already, because if they're going back to retroactive for the support, let's do it the right way.
Of course, if I'm the judge, I'm going to say, hey, I have some equitable powers in family law matters, and I'm just going to say, no, I'm not going to force the wife to refile her tax returns because you could have disclosed this and prevented this from happening in the first instance. So that might be their answer. Ah, boy. The teaching moment here is it's better just to send a stupid letter out that says, hey, I got an increase of this or got an increase of this. And each time you send it to domestic relations, you hope they don't trigger a review.
Well, and it wasn't all once. It was it wasn't a thing where I was getting
right.
A straight increase. I was too busy working. I was doing my job.
No, I understand that. I can see how it happens because a lot of times, if you're making, I'm just going to make a number up. Let's say you're making $15 an hour and you get a raise to $15 and a quarter, and you send it into domestic relations. They're going to be like, "Why are you bugging us?"
Yeah.
But then if they add a quarter, every 6 months in 3 years, all of a sudden, you're up a couple bucks an hour, and they're going to be like, well, "Why didn't you tell us about it?" And you'll be like, "Well, the first time they raised me a quarter, you said don't bother telling me."
Right.
So now I see your dilemma. My answer on that would be just kind of monitor it again. And if you're up a buck an hour or two, make sure you write that letter to domestic relations, just notifying them, keep a copy of it. That way, when somebody tries to claim retroactivity, you can be like, no, I did send that in.
Yeah, see, relations, they said they don't own them from the court in the first place.
Interesting. All right, my friend, I got to go to my break.
Okay, hey, thanks.
All right, 540-0580. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. Taking a little time out of my Christmas holiday, so call 540-0580. See you after the break. Well, welcome back. Hopefully you're getting your shopping done. I know we saw Matt running out the door to finish up his shopping. Fed him one of my mom's Christmas cookies to give him energy to get through the day. And yes, I have a box of cookies my mother sent me in the mail, and I'm carrying it around with me all day. So if you're lucky enough to run into me later, I may share one with you. So if you see a guy with a Tupperware container under his arm at the mall, kind of pudgy, looks like he's lost, it's not me. 540-0580. Richard, you're on the air.
Oh, hi. Thanks for taking the call. Got a question. I got a judgment from a local district justice on a bad debt.
Okay.
And my next step, they tell me, is to, execute and have a choice. Use a constable or use a sheriff. And I understand the procedure is a little different and the authority is a little different depending which way I go.
Right.
But I don't know what all that means.
I guess the short answer is usually with those kinds of, and this is just a money judgment. Does it involve rent?
Yeah, it's for money.
And does it involve like an old rent or was it for something else?
Well, actually, they didn't return the rent deposit, and the district justice told them they should have.
Okay.
And ruled in my favor.
Okay, so you're the tenant and you beat the landlord.
Right.
It's interesting. I know that landlords can garnish the wages of tenants. I would imagine that tenants in a landlord-tenant matter could also garnish the wages of landlords. So you might want to consider going through the sheriff. What you'd have to do there is just file it at the county level.
That file it in a prothonotari's office? Is that the first step?
Yep, and then Precipite have the writ of execution with the sheriff, and that gives you the most flexibility and the most options, and then hopefully they'll pay it because it sounds like, they own a house, right? Or they own a building.
Yes, they do. It could be mortgaged to more than it's worth, but that's another story.
Right. So you at least in theory, will have some asset you might be able to collect against, as well as their personal possessions. But I think because it's landlord-tenant, you may also be able to garnish their wages ultimately. So I would go that route and see what happens.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right, Richard. Good luck. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Can you? Where are you from, Richard?
Lancaster.
Lancaster. All right. I've got a gift certificate I want to give you to Rillo's Restaurant in Carlisle. It's a little bit of a drive, but it might be worth your while.
Oh,
you want to hold on the air here, and Shane will get your information, and we'll take it down. I got a couple more Rillo's gift certificates to give away. I don't know if you've been there, but it's a great Italian restaurant in Carlisle, personal favorite of mine.
Thank you.
All right, Richard, hold on. Don't go anywhere.
I won't.
I'll make sure I don't drop you here. I got to lock you on. All right. Richard's on hold, and Shane's going to get him his tasty Rillo's gift certificate, although I don't recommend eating the gift certificate. I'd exchange it for the meal first. Of course, the talk line number is 540-0580. So there's a new picture of George Washington. Apparently, there's a little museum in New York called the Met, and they have a guy named Lutz's painting of George Washington crossing the river, and it's a pretty clear day, and of course there's an American flag flying apparently. So there's a new updated version that's being unveiled to New York Historical Society. It shows the boat supposedly in the format in which it actually was, which was more like a ferry than a canoe. But most interestingly is the absence of the American flag, and that's one of those interesting things. Think about it. You see that famous photo, George Washington crossing the Delaware, the flag's flying. Well, actually, the flag hadn't been invented yet. So I guess that kind of theory there. You have this painting. Hey Shane, give me my next caller there. Yeah, good boy. He's trying to collect the address and screen the other caller at the same time. Long and short of it is, you have this flag flying, and it doesn't really exist yet anymore. And so you look at these paintings, you think about history, and everything always changes in the way we view things and the accuracy of it. So my point on this just is, whenever you think you know a historical fact or a historical story, you can be really careful that all the details are correct, because we have a history of rewriting history over time. And so the other guy that comes to mind is Chris Columbus. Columbus Day is not a holiday, then it's a holiday, then it's not a holiday, then it's a holiday, then it's a day to mourn the evils of the New World being beat up by the Old World, then it's a holiday again, and back and forth depending on how our frame of mind is at the moment. Bill, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Yes, Carl. I'm on the air?
Yep.
Okay, great, thanks. Where would I go to get boilerplate language for an adoption that I want to do? Is that in the Pennsylvania Civil Rules of Procedure?
Well,
or if I want to do it pro se, and I'm just wondering, where's a good takeoff point to, if I just want to go get some boilerplate language somewhere to get started and filed.
Are we doing a step-parent adoption?
Yes.
Okay. Well, those are the easiest, so you're most likely to succeed.
Okay.
But in all honesty, I don't think there is any boilerplate in the rules. You would follow the rules of the orphans court.
Uh-huh.
And then the orphans court rules say wherever we don't speak to an issue, you follow the general rules of Pennsylvania civil procedure. So the orphans court will give you requirements, but there's also the Adoption Act and the statute as to what you have to do. Boilerplate, I'm not aware of any boilerplate adoption forms out there per se. So,
I know I looked on the internet, and maybe like a year or so ago,
and the reason is, I mean, I explain it this way. We find that as often as we do them, we still always have changes coming up.
Right.
So there's just so many changes all the time and so many new requirements, and every county does it a little differently. Each judge wants them done a little differently. So I'll give you an example. Some judges, for instance, will do a termination of parental rights hearing and then go right into the adoption. Other times, even if you have a consent, the judge still wants to separate the two. And it's just knowing those little quirks of each particular courthouse and judge changes the way you format and your suggested orders, etc.
Okay. Does it take much time to the full round trip to get it done? Does it take much time?
I mean, from a lawyer's standpoint?
Let's say if I came in and had you do it, how long would it take you to run it through?
I mean, from start to finish, we can complete an adoption usually. Trying to think what the shortest time period is, but I would say 90 to 120 days because of the requisite notices, service, etc.
There wouldn't be any hang-ups in this situation. There would be no hang-ups.
Yeah, and is the other person going to sign a consent?
There would be no other person involved.
Well, we got to have some theory on why they don't exist. Then, so we're still going to have a little hearing on that.
Well, I'd have that taken care of.
Well, I don't know how you take care.
I can provide documentation as far as that goes.
Yeah, I know, but we still have to have a hearing.
Okay.
I mean, what? If a judge is just going to go take your word for it? I mean, we got to get somebody under oath and get some explanation for where Dad is.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I understand.
Because otherwise, I would just, you want to join you might buy my Brooklyn Bridge. I've got documents that say I own it.
Right. Well, let's say then, the filing, a hearing.
You're looking at here's what I tell people. You're looking at spending between $1,500 and $2,000 on a step parent adoption.
Okay.
And of course, here's the other thing: doing it right's probably critically important in a case like that. I mean, you don't want an adoption that turns out to be null and void later because there's so many things riding on it. And I did see an adoption voided one time, and you're like, ooh, ouch! I would hate to be that lawyer.
Right.
But anyhow. Long and short of it, that's what I would tell you. I mean, but there's no great form to point you to. And the other thing most lawyers will shy away from, myself included, is what we call hybrid representation. And that would be where a lawyer drafts the documents but lets you go to court. Because, there's two reasons for that. The ethical rules say that we have to be very careful whenever we do hybrid representation because it's kind of like your mechanic handing you the lift and the air hammer and saying go to work. If something bad happens, he's probably on the hook. So that's the issue there from the liability standpoint. The other problem is from an ethical standpoint is, I have to be sure that you're going to do a good job because otherwise, you're paying me this money and what if you futz it up? You're going to later say, well, you should have counseled me better, and you're going to say, well, but you didn't want me.
Right.
So we shy away from it just because it's so fraught with problems. And my old joke about it is, when the hybrid representation works perfect, you're like, wow, I saved money. When it works poorly, you're like, why didn't my lawyer tell me I shouldn't do it this way?
I see.
So that's kind of what you're going to find is that most lawyers will shy away from that.
When you said $1,500 to $2,000, did that include the filing fee?
Yeah, that'd been all inclusive.
Okay.
Rob Culling in my office does those, by the way.
Rob who?
Culling. Robert Culling does the adoptions.
How do you spell that, Culling?
Kulling. And the phone number to get him is 241-6070.
6070.
241-6070.
What about age? What age? What's the cutoff on the age as far as you
can adopt an adult.
No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about involving issues of consent or something like that. Don't the children get involved if they're above a certain age?
I don't know if there's a magic age off the top of my head. We'll have to ask Rob that question. But I would imagine the child's opinion is going to matter to most judges if they're sufficiently articulate. So, but I don't know if there's a magic age of 12 or 16 or not. I've never actually thought that through because the last couple adoptions I've actually done all involve little kids. So I'd have to take a look at that. But Rob would know the answer.
Okay. All right. I'll have to give him a call. Thank you very much.
All right, Bill. Hey, thank you very much.
Okay. Bye.
All right, bye. And for all you who think I'm trying to talk Bill into hiring a lawyer, you're right. But there's a reason for that. It has little to do with getting paid. It has a lot to do with if you're going to do an adoption. And there's a reason why there's not a lot of forms out there. So if you look out there on the internet, there's a million will forms. There's a million do-it-yourself divorce forms. I'm not advocating those, and they're often screwed up, and bad things happen to people who use them. But sometimes they use them successfully, and sometimes things turn out really great. But there's a reason why there's not a pile of adoption forms on the internet. That tells you something. That's the sign. It's kind of like when something breaks and you think, I'll be able to fix it. It should be easy to fix. So you go on the internet and you start researching, what part you need or how to fix it. And you realize that there's no good description or no good source for how to fix this thing because if it's broke, that just tells you if it's broken that way, nobody else has ever successfully fixed it. Therefore, they haven't posted it. I don't mean you can't be the first, but I think that's a clue. All right, I go to break here on Christmas Eve, 540-0580. I'll see you guys in a few minutes. Well, welcome back. Carl Rominger here, 540-0580. Just enjoying a little Christmas music, which they're going to play until probably New Year's, right? It's pretty much... What's for no New Year's music? I don't know. Well, I guess there's like Old Lang Syne, all that stuff, but enjoyable. All right, enough. Bah humbug, I say. So, Shane, I saw you quoted in the newspaper, huh? Is that you?
That was me.
We put up that Scrooge and Marley sign at the Rominger Law Offices in Carlisle. So if you're in downtown Carlisle and you're driving down 155 South Hanover, you'll see it says Scrooge and Marley. What is it? Private merchant bankers and money lenders.
Correct.
And it's amazing how many people think it's very funny or cute, but it's also amazing how many people are like, hey, Carl, where'd you move your office to? There's some bank there now. And I'm like, yeah, some bank run by a guy named Scrooge. They're like, yeah. I'm like, all right, yeah. Oh, yeah, there's a bank there, all right. We're going to leave that sign up for a while longer, but the Carlisle Sentinel wrote an article about it. I don't know if it came out in today's newspaper or...
It came out yesterday, actually.
Oh, it came out yesterday. Okay. Oh, they have an afternoon newspaper or something, yeah.
Well, I guess the online version of it
came
out yesterday. I don't know when their newspaper's scheduled to release.
Gotcha. Yeah, so hopefully I'm going to get a copy of that. Somebody has a Carlisle Sentinel, sees the article in there, clip it out and send it to us. It's 155 South Hanover Street, Carlisle, Pennsylvania, 17013. Clip it out and send it in. And, of course, while you're sending it in, send in your free will kit. Go to weekendappointment.com, fill out our free will kit, and send it in. We do those every week. It's a pleasure to meet people, and it's a real live free will with a real live lawyer, not one of these kits, not one of these do-it-yourself things. And it doesn't cost you anything, so there's no excuse. Dennis, you're on WHP 580 with Carl Rominger. What's going on?
Hey, Carl.
How are you?
I have a situation where I think I need to file a stay or something through the court, common pleas.
Okay, what's going on?
Oh, I don't know how much I want to really get into it, but I want to challenge the census numbers. Because it's going to affect something down the road as far as I'm just got elected from a local municipality that's in the past, before 2010, we were under 3,000, and now that the census came out, they're saying we were over 3,000 now, so it kind of puts in jeopardy my taking the seat and staying employed with the borough. So I was thinking that one of the options that's been thrown at me is that we can challenge the census numbers because we know they're wrong.
Mm-hmm.
The borough's done some background into, how they came about their number, and they've added some areas from a adjoining municipality into our numbers to create our additional, amount. So I'm looking at one of my options is to challenge those numbers, but I can't get the census to check their numbers because they don't do it for individuals. The municipality or the county or whatever has to challenge those numbers, not an individual.
Gotcha. Very interesting. I have no idea. I have no idea where you would even start. I mean, the short answer is I got to imagine somewhere in the census law, in the federal law, is the process for challenging those numbers.
And like I said, from what I'm aware of, you have to challenge them through the municipality, being the government body, has to challenge them. And I'm getting virtually nowhere with my municipality.
Right, and of course, here's the problem: you probably lack what's called standing. And so, if you remember the American flag case, Neumeyer versus, I don't know if it was California or some school district or some such thing, but Mr. Neumeyer successfully got the Ninth Circuit to say that it was unconstitutional to pledge. And the Supreme Court took it up and then punted it and said we don't have to decide it because Mr. Neumeyer doesn't currently have legal custody of his daughter. Therefore, he has no standing to raise this issue. So you can see courts take standing very, very seriously. I mean, even in an issue of national importance where they could have resolved the question once and for all about the under God portion, they just said, we don't have to because the guy doesn't have standing. And they would probably do the same in the census. So long and short of it is you're going to have to convince the body politic that has standing to take up the case unless you can make a claim in your capacity as an elected official that you somehow have standing as well.
Okay.
All right.
That's something that's going to probably weed itself out at the beginning of the year here because I just got reelected on the last ballot. So it's something that's going to have to be like I said, we all realize that the census numbers are wrong, but how they correct it is, or whether they correct it is a different story. Right.
And they probably, I don't know what their incentive is to correct it or not. They probably don't care, right?
Yep.
All right, my friend. That's the best answer I can give you.
Yeah, well, that's cool. I mean, I'm just trying to get as much information as I can so that I can make an educated guess on what direction I need to go.
I would go to the Code of Federal Regulations and the enabling statutes for the census, which are in the U.S. Code, and read them. And I know it's going to be painstaking and it's going to be terrible, but somewhere in there is going to be the process and maybe also some clue as to if there's anybody else who has standing. I mean, I never trust, if I call a PennDOT and I say, well, what can I do? The person there on the telephone is going to tell me, well, you can do this, this, or this, but they may not be aware of all the full options because some of them aren't often pursued. In fact, one of the lawyers in my office talked to the governor's office in New Jersey about restoration of firearms rights, and the office there is like, well, yeah, technically we think we can do that, but we haven't done it in so long, we don't even have a process in place. But he had to find a person in there who would even acknowledge that they had the power to do it because it seemed to be hidden in the law somewhere. But at the same time, if you just asked the front end people, they'd be like, "No, we don't do that," or "You can't do that." So,
well, the easiest answer is, usually the shortest answer. So,
all right, brother.
I understand. Thank you.
Bye. 540-0580. We'll talk about your legal questions here. Of course, if you're running around doing your Christmas shopping, you can stop and pick something up for me. You can just send it to WHP 580 Studios. They will route it to me. If you need my sizes, call in Shane. I'll give them to you. We're pretty easy going here. Skateboard probably would be good. What else did I want to talk to you guys about? Well, what else do we know is going on in the news here with Russia? I wanted to touch base on that just a little bit. Putin is not going to want to stand down here, and now Gorbachev's calling for him to stand down, and I just can't believe he's actually going to do it because he's kind of reminds me of the other dictators around the world where he wraps himself in a vote and a plebiscite, whatnot, but he doesn't seem like he really wants to go. In fact, he's been working hard to engineer his return. So I can't imagine he's going to step down willingly. The interesting question will be how violent it will get in Russia, whether there will be true widespread protests and what's going to happen. And that touches on the whole social media issue and the whole concept of all the communication, all the porous communication that goes on. So it's kind of interesting because what we're seeing is this world where the government can more easily monitor you. So if you go on YouTube, Julian Assange, the guy from WikiLeaks, has a couple of videos on there, like where they leak some government videos where they were selling to the government this software. Basically makes it easy for the government to track anything and everything a quote target, meaning you or me, does online. And literally in real time intercept your cell phone calls, the whole 9 yards. And it was very interesting. And he kind of showed it like, here's what your governments are actually buying from these various vendors. And here's their ad. And, the ad that they're sending out to the guys in the government to buy this stuff basically makes it blatantly clear it's all about violating your privacy. And the aggregation of social media, like Facebook, for instance, supposedly cooperates with the government heavily, makes it very easy for them to monitor your communications. the irony of it is even though they can more easily individually target any one person and stuff can come to their attention faster, the ability of diverse people to communicate quickly and efficiently seems to outstrip government's ability to overtake it. So we kind of run this cycle where everybody gets on the social media, shares the information. By the time it's spread and before the government has time to react, it's out there. The bad news is you're now on the short list of dissidents. So when they do start to come around people up, you're on the short list. So it'll be interesting how this all plays out. And obviously, Russia does not have exactly the same crackdown on the media that we see in China or we see in the other countries such as Iran or Syria. So it will be very interesting to see how this plays out. So keep your eye on Putin and Russia and what's going on over there. Also, North Korea, of course. I'll just touch on that for just a second. The last megalomaniac is dead over there. Probably too much brandy, too much good living, while the rest of the people in the country are living in abject poverty and starving to death. Of course, if you actually brought one of those folks over here to the United States, they would be amazed because they assume that we all live in a big gulag over here. I had a friend, actually, who came over from a communist nation, and he said it was very interesting to come to America because it's so different than what you're taught when you're a kid. And I've heard that also from a Palestinian friend of mine as well. Anyhow, long and short of it, keep your eye on North Korea because that is a dangerous situation that could decay. I know that many of the listeners here are very suspicious of President Obama, but he does seem like a little bit of a war hawk, so I'm sure he'll keep him at bay. 540-0580. Got to go to break, and then I'll take Mary after the break. I don't know what kind of music that is. 540-0580. Answer your legal questions here. Got to do my, I think I'm done Christmas shopping, so I think I'll be okay. What time do the stores close, Shane? Do we know? You think they're open late on Christmas? I think a lot of times they close at like 5 or 6, but I guess because it's on a Saturday, it gets kind of confusing.
Saturday's really thrown it all off, hasn't it?
I know. Well, you know what? If anybody's in retail out there and they want to give us the closing hour so we can get the warning bells buzzing here, I would really appreciate it. Call 540-0580 and let me know what time the major retailers are probably planning on closing so I can tell people how fast to drive. Mary.
Hey, Carl.
Yeah.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good.
It's nice talking to you. Listen, I have a small problem. I have a abandoned cart, that you pull behind a pickup.
Yeah.
And how do I go about getting a license for it?
Well, let's see. It's been abandoned, so it probably has a VIN number on it somewhere.
Oh, I have the old registration for it.
Oh, okay. And do we know who used to own it or no?
Oh, yeah, my niece, but I haven't heard from her in 3 years.
Yeah, we probably need to, technically she owns it, so what we probably end up needing to do is get a salvage person involved or see if we can do something to try to terminate her interest in the title. But the long and short of it is, it seems to me it's her titled property, so a salver would have to apply for a salvage license basically salvage title. And once it's titled as salvage, then could give it back to you. So a salver could facilitate that for you.
Oh, really? Go to a salvage yard, you mean? Yeah,
like if you like a lot of tow truck people, and then there's other people that just do salvage yard work. But you basically go to them and say, "Hey, listen, I have this abandoned cart. Here's the deal. I want you guys to." The general thing is, you would call the police and say, "I got this abandoned property here." They would fill out a form that would allow the salver to take it. They then send in paperwork to PennDOT. After a certain time period goes, and they've done what PennDOT wants them to do, then they own it. But you just have an agreement ahead of time that they were going to give it back to you, and then they can make some money on the deal somehow.
Well, that's great. That's nice to know. I appreciate your knowledge, Carl.
No problem.
All righty.
All right, take care. I think that's the best way to do it. Skip the lawyers that time. 540-0580. Answer your legal questions here on Christmas Eve. And, of course, we're going to keep going from 2 o'clock until 3 o'clock. So the next hour we'll be here just chit-chatting away. Nancy, you're on the air.
Hey, Carl. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. How are you?
I'm okay. I have a question.
Yes.
About charge-offs.
Okay.
I was told recently, I have a credit card that's been charged off.
Mm-hmm.
And I was told recently by a friend that I don't need to make payments on it anymore because they've charged it off. They're getting credit for that somewhere.
Right.
And I no longer need to make payments.
Well,
Is that true?
the short answer is I don't know what they're going to show on your credit report. So, the answer is if they're charging it off and they're not seeking to collect it, that's true. Then what they would do is change their accounting and say we're not, this is an uncollectible debt, which would remove it become a deduction on an accrual basis accounting. But whether or not it's going to show on your credit report, I don't know. So I don't know what their intent is. I mean, do they literally charge it off? I mean, what they do? Write you a letter say we're not collecting it anymore?
Well, so that's what I was wondering. They told me it was charged off because I made small payments for like 4 months, and They didn't add up to the payments that they wanted, so they considered it as not paid for that amount of time. So they charged it off, and I told them I wanted to make payments, and so they said that they would accept small payments every month.
Right.
And as I said, I was talking to someone, and they said, well, if they charged it off and it's on your credit report, and they did tell me that it's on my credit report, that I don't need to pay them anymore because they're getting something somewhere from someone else.
I don't have to get something anywhere from anybody else. They charge it off except an accounting benefit in the sense they get to take it off.
Right.
But, hey, I don't know. I don't know the answer. So the short answer is it sounds like you need to do something to get it off your credit report. It's just going to sit out there. I don't think it's going to fall off. On the other hand, I'm not sure what they mean by charging it off. So long and short of it is I don't think you're completely free and clear. And the other answer is even though they've, quote, charged it off, they still have up to 4 years to bring a collections lawsuit as well.
Oh, okay.
From the time of date of the last payment. So.
Okay. So what do I need to do? Find out from them what they actually did?
Yeah. And then the other thing is if they've already charged it off, ask them if they want to go ahead and settle up the account. I'll send you $50 and we'll call it even.
Ah, okay. Are they going to tell me?
I don't know. You're probably going to get one of those giant undersea cables that takes your phone call somewhere else and get the runaround. I don't know.
That's what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid that if I call and ask them, they're just going to give me some kind of shine.
Right. And I don't know the answer. You might want to do it by written correspondence.
Ah, okay. So then I better check into it.
Yeah, I would definitely check into it. I wouldn't just forget about it.
Okay.
I think that's the main lesson here.
All right.
Okay,
thank you so much.
All right. Hey, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Hey, Nancy, where are you from?
I'm here in Carlisle.
Okay, well, I want you to hold on a minute. Shane's going to get your address here and get you a Rillo's gift certificate.
All right.
All right, hold on here. I'm going to put you on hold.
Okay, great. Thank you.
All right, let's see. We've got Nancy on hold, and who's next? Okay, we have a little information here. Walmart in York is open until 8 p.m., so there's the good news. I don't know what that means for all the other Walmarts, but that's the news I got. Nancy's going to get a Rillo's gift certificate, and Rillo's is a really good restaurant in Carlisle. I like to eat there myself, and they were kind enough to give me a couple gift certificates to give out to the listeners here. But if you weren't lucky enough to get a gift certificate, still stop in there and tell them Carl sent you. Maybe they'll make fun of you. I don't know what they'll do. Gene.
Yes, hi, how are you?
Good.
Thanks for taking my call. I was formerly an elected member of the Pennsylvania House, and my daughter ran for office this year for a different seat, was a magisterial district justice seat. And they beat the living daylights out of me in the campaign that she ran. I mean, I was not involved with the campaign. I didn't have anything to do with it. They were trying to obviously beat her, but they used me the entire time. And I recently was turned down for a job based on the fact that, they send out more information about me during her campaign. Is there anything I can do to libel-wise to stop them from this?
So they're using information about you and your daughter's campaign.
Yeah, I mean, they said, why would you elect this woman? Her father lost a race in 2006 and blah, 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 and it went on, and they were nasty pieces.
Well, to the extent that what they're saying is true, I guess it's not actionable, right?
Well, I don't know that it's not true. I mean, they said, they made some claims, some outrageous claims that I was, I lost because of a pay raise vote. I didn't lose for anything else.
Right, and to the extent that it's not true, it may be actionable. Now, of course, commentary about you as a public official is subject to the greatest level of protection, if that makes sense.
Well, how many years do you have to be out to not be somebody's scapegoat?
See, that's an interesting question. I've never seen the analysis on that. So what you're basically saying is, okay, they want to talk about what I did. I'm just going to make a number up. Let's just say you retired 20 years ago, because we know that wasn't that long ago. But we'll use an extreme number. You retired 20 years ago, and now they're going to say stuff about you and libel you in order to gain a benefit against a third party. And it doesn't seem like you're a public official anymore, right?
No.
On the other hand, if I want to say that I think that John Adams was a great president or a terrible president, since I like to talk about John Adams so much, am I libeling his?
But if you're saying John Adams' grandson is no good because of John Adams,
yeah.
At what point am I done being a public official and allowed to be a private citizen again that you simply can't bring a family member into someone else's campaign?
I don't know the answer. Here's the other thing. I don't know the answer, but you could always bring an action and be told no.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. Is someone like you?
Hold through the break, would you?
Sure.
All right. Carl Rominger here answering your legal questions. We'll be back for another full hour here on Christmas Eve. While you're out shopping, give us a call, 540-0580. I'll see you in about 6 minutes.